All right, we're live, so good morning. And good morning to everyone in the live trading room. And good morning to everyone on YouTube. Give us a like, subscribe. Let's close out the month strong today. And the only way to do that is to fade Amazon. You want to close it out strong? Let's fade Amazon. Nah, in all seriousness. So, it's the last day of the month. I'm honestly just going to keep it really chill today. Market's gapping down. You know, you had some economic news come out. There's still heavy talks about inflation. You got, you know, these companies reporting really good earnings, and yet they don't hold the rallies. Look at what happened to Microsoft. Look at what happened to Apple, AMD. The only one that really held was Facebook. Amazon is going to be my first stock. It hit a high in after hours, $3,667, and we're trading back down to $3,554. So this is the exact same setup as Apple yesterday. Let me pull up the chart from Apple yesterday. You could see that, let me do a 3-day. You could see the pop on Apple. It faded a little bit, and it was right in the middle of the price point of the high and the low of the after hours action from the earnings report, and it just dumped. Yesterday I shorted Apple. Was a really nice trade for me. And Amazon just has the same look. It has the same look. But here's my game plan. So if Apple fades 3,536, if it cracks that and it's just starting to fade and the market's pulling, I'll go in for a short. I'll take a look on whether I'll do equity or options, depending on the spread of the options. But nonetheless, I know it's an expensive stock. I know many won't be able to play it, but for those who can play it, I mean, this is a stock that I'm definitely going to get my hands on. So I like this tight consolidation that it's got in pre-market. If it breaks out of 3,566, go long. Throw your stops at 3,536. So it's a 30-point range, give or take. If the short triggers and the market's pulling and Amazon's just yanking and it's starting to fade, I'll short it. I'll throw my stops kind of like where it's sitting at right now at the midpoint, right? So that's my idea for Amazon. Another stock is going to be NEO. NEO reported earnings. From the earnings report, it seemed like it looked pretty good, but once again, these stocks are just fading from the earnings report. Revenues rose 481% year over year. Company issues upside guidance, and yet the stock is fading. So clearly you could just see that investors don't have an appetite for high growth stocks. There's a lot of concerns in the market. I mean, just look at the SPY on the daily chart. You could just see it's struggling. I mean, it's struggling. The market is losing its juice to rally, and it's very, very clear. So stocks like NEO are getting hit, and Apple, all these other big boys. So for NEO, this is kind of like a crucial day because Taj called a swing last week on the 21st, and that swing was a really good swing. You can look at the daily; it rallied for 4 days, and then coming into earnings, it's just faded back. So could we possibly test the 200-day moving average today? I don't know. Maybe. If the market really is dumping, I think NEO could come down to like $36. But it would have to require like a really strong flush in the market. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on. From an intraday perspective, I'll short NEO if it cracks 37.45. But if we see NEO breaking out of 38, then I'll go long. So, and then I'll throw my stops at 37.50. So I'll risk 50 cents on the trade if strong volume comes in and we see buying coming in. But if NEO begins to fade away, you guys know where my short entry is on that stock. Tesla is another stock that's going to be on my A list today. It's gapping down, really not looking good. On the daily chart, guys, I see Tesla, if the market really wants to pull, the lower Bollinger Band is at 655 on the daily. If it cracks 655, I can see it come down to 641, 640. That's kind of like where I see, you know, some resistance or some support rather on the daily. I would downside target 655, 645. But if we start getting a pop in the market, look to go long Tesla. If it breaks out of this, I would say 677 range, and then throw your stops at pre-market low, 633, 663 or 664. So you're only risking 3 points on Tesla if it rallies. But if it fades, you can short it, but then throw your stops at 667. Once again, you're only risking 3 points on Tesla. So it's a hell of a risk reward on Tesla, if you ask me. Another one is Twitter. Twitter is getting destroyed. Good revenues, good earnings, so they're profitable. They beat expectations, but their daily active users are decelerating. And investors are not happy about it. The stock is still fading as we speak. And to be honest, I mean, it has gotten such a beatdown. I don't know how much more it's got to the downside. So I'm gonna keep an eye on it to see if there's a good entry point on the stock. But the damage, I think, is really done, in my opinion. If we start to see Twitter maybe bounce, I would look for a long if it can break out of like 56.50. Do your stops at pre-market low, right? But I mean, this is a counter trend trade. This is a trade that I really don't have a lot of conviction with. So let's just see how Twitter plays out. I am going to keep it on my charts. I'm going to watch it. But this has got a smackdown. So just keep an eye on this one. Another one is MVIS. MVIS reported earnings. This one's hilarious because we've been trading it to the upside all this time. We've made good money on it. And they reported earnings yesterday. And look at the gap down. I mean, you had a multi-billion-dollar market cap, and they only reported $500,000 of revenue. Whoa. Damn, there's some toys in my son's room that just fell. That was really weird. They couldn't believe the earnings report from MVIS. So yeah, MVIS is just, you know, I mean, the valuation thing. I mean, how can you have a multi-billion-dollar market cap with crappy earnings? So no surprise to the gap down. I'll look to short MVIS, man, if this thing cracks 1350. Fade it to a pre-market low of 1270. On the daily chart, this, if they really want to fade this, man, this thing can come down. Yeah, 1270. And maybe it could come down to like $12. So that's what I see here. Now, if we start to get a rally for whatever reason, I'll go long if it breaks out of like 1450, 1460. But it would have to be like a bull flag setup, nice consolidation, show me that there's support at that price, and then break out. I'm not gonna chase it for then to pull back on me. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna play this one safely. I'm more inclined to short it, considering the crappy earnings and the high valuation that it's got. So let's see how this one plays out. It's gotten hurt pretty bad already. Yesterday it faded from like $22 and it hit a low of 1270. So let's see potentially if there is a bounce, but I don't think it'll hold. So that is that for me. I'm keeping it very simple today. I've got my eyes on some other small caps, like VXRT. Maybe it's showing a little bit of action in pre-market, but nothing crazy. And I'm gonna keep my radar open for other small caps that could potentially run. But other than that, let me pass it on to my boy Tosh.
Yeah, so there's only going to be about, about four other names that I'm going to go over. There's not a lot of action going on in the small cap world. The only thing that I really see in VIS, obviously, and the VXRT and OCGN. So I'll go over VXRT first. What I'm seeing with VXRT is a slight gap up. Closed yesterday at 920. Currently trading at 950. About 10 to 15 minutes ago, this looked much better for a long, potentially a break of 980. But we recently just had, actually the prior five minutes, big volume come in and had this big bar sell off. So be careful with VXRT. Don't be in a rush to get into this. I would like to see it break 980 before going long. If it does break 980, you can definitely go long. Those stops around 950, 940 if you want to give it a little more room. But what I do like about VXRT is the fact that it's holding. I know we got rejected off of $11, and that's a price zone to be mindful of going into the day. If we are able to test $11, just be mindful of that it is a strong resistance. But the fact that it was able to hold a good majority of a lot of the price action in pre-market and not continue to sell off is a good thing. We just have to see how it behaves when the market opens. If VXRT starts to come back below, 920, $9, it's done. You can definitely look for a short. It's going to continue to the downside, and it's pretty much going to confirm this topping tail bar that I put in on the daily. So keep an eye on that. OCGN is another one. OCGN is a stock. It's just holding this flag that it has up here over the past 4 days with a range of around $10 to $12. I thought here on the 23rd, the stock was going to be done. It was going to be finished. Huge topping tail bar, but then as you can see, there was no follow through to that topping tail bar. We actually had a gap up on Monday. So what we have coming in today is looking at a lot of the consolidation that's happened. We have to see which range we want to break out of. It was OCGN. Pretty much the high point is around $12. The low point is, like I said, around $10. So if we could rally back up to OCGN 1180, I wouldn't mind going for a long. Maybe throw our stops around 1150 or so and see if we can test that $12 again. If OCGN can rip out a 12 and rip out a 13, I think we'll be able to blast off to $14. But that's considering if that, were to happen. As for a short, you could try for a short of the pre-market low here around 1120. I wouldn't necessarily do it because you're fighting a lot of support here. OCGN, it seems like every single time it comes down to $10 and dips below it, you get a huge bounce. I would wait for that to break before looking for any short. But that's the idea going in with OCGN. Another stock I'll just kind of be keeping an eye on is AMC. So AMC, a few days ago, we were able to break out of 11, shoot up to 12, but then it immediately gave it back. And now AMC looks very weak again. Had a very ugly day yesterday, high of $11, below $10, pretty much opened at its highs and closed at its lows. And you're getting a bear flag down here at the lows on AMC. So the way I see it, if AMC breaks $10, you do have the 20 MA here at 990, but after that, you don't really have any support until around $9. So if this name really starts to break down, you could definitely look for a short here. The volume wasn't too crazy yesterday, but it's just consistent, right? The chart doesn't look that bad, and the volume is decent enough to the point where you could definitely take advantage of it from a day trade perspective. So I'll be keeping an eye on that. Also, the overall market, both the S&P and the NASDAQ, both are bear flagging down here. I'll go over the S&P first. We did hit that new all-time high yesterday, hit a high of 420.72, and just gave it out immediately. Poked through it, and then, I mean, I'm looking at it on the 15-minute chart. It just went down all day. All day, essentially. We did get a bounce here at 12 o'clock, a pretty significant bounce, actually. If you're looking at the S&P, you had a low of, I mean, look at the range on this, 416.44, and you bounced all the way back up to 420.50. You were 20 cents away from the high after the bounce at 12 o'clock. So a really, really strong bounce. You would think, what, we're gonna have some type of follow through today, right? You had the big sell off, you had the recovery happen. Today, you would assume it's back to business as usual as far as continuing the rally. However, that's not the case. S&P is getting hurt pretty badly here in the pre-market session. Closed at 420.06. We're trading down at 417.50. So we are much closer to yesterday's lows than we are the highs. So it pretty much gave back that entire rally we had in the afternoon session. So for the S&P, if we start breaking down here to 417, we can look for a short. There are stops around 417.60, and let's see if we can continue to the downside. The fact that we've been having these long periods of consolidation, hitting highs, especially yesterday, with no follow through, it's immediately pulling back is very concerning. Just think about that from a day trade perspective. If you were long a stock and it broke through a high and immediately yanked, not just to the day's lows, but prior day's lows, you would think the rally's probably done at that point. So I'm not saying that's the case, but it's looking that way with the S&P. So let's see what we get. The Qs, very similar. It didn't have nearly as strong of a bounce as the S&P 500. It looks like you had a little over 50% retracement during its 12 o'clock bounce. However, again, it's just like the S&P, it is looking very weak still. The low yesterday was 336.90. I believe we came very close in the pre-market session to breaking it.
Yeah.
So the way I see it with the triple Qs is that if it starts breaking below, again, 337, you look for a short. And if we short it and it really starts to break down and breaks yesterday's low, there's really no support until around 334. So again, if the market's weak, I will definitely be playing the indices. I believe it's expiration Friday, if I'm not mistaken, for the monthly contracts. Let me double check. Trade. Is it? Yeah, it looks like it. Well, for the weeklies, it is. Okay. So very weak today. The overall market's looking very weak. I'm more inclined to go short a lot of names today.
Yeah.
Specifically the big names, big tech names, because of the failed rally that we had, or the failed new highs that we had yesterday. So with that being said, I'll be keeping, my A list. Number one on that list is going to be, Twitter. We're going to be keeping a close eye on Tesla. If the market starts looking weak, I think Tesla's a name, prime candidate that can continue to come down. Microsoft is going to be another name. Microsoft had a very strong, not very strong, but a decent rally off of that 12 o'clock bounce. But again, just like the overall indices, the S&P and the Qs, they're trading right back down to yesterday's lows. Now, I will say this, if Microsoft does start getting extended, has as bad of a day as it did yesterday, I will consider trying to bounce it for a swing, because this is getting a little ugly on the daily for Microsoft. So if Microsoft, makes its way down to 240 somehow today, 245, maybe I'll consider, picking up some calls for the next coming weeks. But other than that, man, that's pretty much going to do it for my A list. I want to keep it, pretty simple today.
Yep.
There are some things going on, but there's not a lot of exciting plays going on right now. So I think we're going to have to be very patient and look for those A1 setups, because right now things are just, there's been big movements that have happened with a lot of the bigger names.
100% agree. I think today's the day where we got to be patient, wait for that A+ setup, and not rush into anything. And look, if there is no A+ setup for us, then don't take a trade. For everyone that's tuning in and that's in the live trading room, if you don't have that conviction on a trade, it's better to not even take a trade. Sometimes not taking a trade, I mean, that's considered a trade because you don't want to lose money, right? So, yeah, I'm going to keep it simple today too, man. I think today's going to be simple, close out the month. And one note I did want to mention on the triple Qs, you've got a double top on the daily. You got a topping right here on April 16th, and you got a topping here with yesterday's action. So and you got the AMZN. If you look pretty closely, the AMZN is starting to curl downward, and if it starts to cross the 20, you've got trouble with the Nasdaq. You got short-term downside, and I think your target of 334 is definitely, if that doesn't hold, you've got some downside for the triple Qs. So that's something to keep an eye on. As we are trading in the coming days and weeks. But with that being said, less than 2 minutes to the market open. So for everyone on YouTube, thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you all later with Trade of the Day, and have a great weekend.